right, guys. So thanks so much for joining. We have Paul with us, who's HR consultant, and Linda's going to start out with some questions, and I'll follow through to kind of get Paul's interview and literally learn some amazing information that he wants to share with us.
Can you tell us why you became an HR consultant? And was it more a part of who you are, or was it some experience that led you to that work?
Sure. Thank you very much for both having me. I can say that I fell into HR, actually. I'm an IT guy by trade, over 25 years of working in the IT trade, and got into a point where I started doing more things with HR. And as I got more and more into it, I realized there was this huge need. And we know internationally, even here in the US, that there's a tremendous need for HR to sort of change. It needs to sort of catch up to where things are today. And one of the things I realized is a lot of HR professionals haven't really focused outside of their realm. So they focused on their specific areas in HR, but really haven't paid attention to how they affect the entire enterprise. So that's what got me into consulting for HR, is realizing that as a business person, I'm an IT guy, that as I learned more about HR and got certified in HR and ran some HR teams, I realized there's this piece missing about how to make sure you know how you are affecting the entire enterprise. So that's what drove me into consulting, is to make sure I can help people understand that.
What else would you give as your favorite consulting tip that you'd like to pass on to your future clients?
So my favorite consulting tip is, and we've kind of heard this, and it's interesting, when I studied HR a lot more in depth, both for certification and for my book, one of the things I learned is there's a difference between an organization that learns and a learning organization. Learning organization is not just someone who has an organization full of learners. A learning organization actually focuses on how to help everybody learn and use that learning to drive results. That's different than just everybody getting career development and doing things. That's everyone learning in an organization. And I always tell people, I try to explain to them that learning organization is really what you want to be, because we all know that if you can get a group of people together who have the aptitude, the attitude, the agility, problem solving, critical thinking, it doesn't matter what you throw at them, they will figure it out. They might have some of the resources. If not, they'll find the right resources. They might know something. They might learn something. They will figure it out. When you get together teams like that, and I have been part of teams and I've led teams that do this, it is so powerful when that happens. You feel so good. Everybody feels like you're part of a team. It's kind of like what the military does sometimes with that mission. You've got your mission. Everybody comes together. You know your part. You all do it. And then in the end, you're like, wow, that really worked. And in the organizations that I've seen that do that well, it just creates this camaraderie and creates the ability for people then to say, I want that again. So now they're not just going to sit and be passive candidates. They're going to be actively saying, I want that again. And they're going to say, what do we do to get that again? And now you've got them hooked. They're intrinsically ready and motivated to go out and do great things.
That's awesome, man. I really like what you said there, and it made me think of a new term that I read recently. It's called learnability, right? It's ability to learn new things and apply them, and that's what you made me think of just now when you're talking about it. It's almost like making an assembly line. It doesn't matter what you do. You got the systems and people focused on the right stuff that you just plug and play. You put a new piece in, they all are constantly learning, you're constantly developing, they know how to work together like that, and it's just doesn't matter what you put in front of them, they already got the systems built into it. I love that. That's a really cool tip. Awesome, man. So that sounds like a really kind of complex process, I would imagine, as HR doesn't seem like an easy beast to tackle. So, within that, like, how would you describe a high level view of your process when it comes down to HR consulting?
So, and you're right, and that's one of the disadvantages to HR is there are so many realms across the specific spectrum. You've got everything from the specifics of compensation and benefits, which is a world of itself, to talent acquisition, to the actual workforce planning. You've got so many different pieces and parts of HR that you have to break it down into its pieces and parts. So what I do is I set up a framework that follows sort of what the certifications and the general things that SHRM and HRCI have set forward for the professional certifications is, here are the areas, 5 to 6 areas. There's a book of knowledge for each of those for SHRM and HRCI. So I follow their body of knowledge that says, here are the areas of expertise, and then within them are the sort of goals of what you should know, the tactical and strategic ways of building them. And then I take that information and build a framework. So, and it is very difficult because it can be overwhelming for most people. So I start with just the simple things they already know and then build on those as building blocks. And that's the trick to it all, is because you can look at it and say, there's so much to know. Where do I start? And I start with the very simple things that says, you know this, let me build on that and add to it.
That's awesome. I mean, that sounds like you break it down, provide great detail, and probably do it in a way that's at the right pace for people to grasp and understand. You mentioned kind of a lengthy process, as we talked about the course that you're potentially going to build. It's not something that's taught overnight. It's going to be, recurrence and, more importantly, resonated information, right? So if obviously that course and the things that you're doing and you're consulting, all that kind of stuff, that's ultimately the vessel of the ship, right? That's the ship. What is the end result for the companies, for people that you go and consult with? Kind of what's that, how do you know they got there, and what is kind of the end result for them?
So the end result specifically, to mention it just in a little phrase, is to turn a specialist into a generalist. And the way I do that is to take someone who, say, maybe only knows the world of payroll and help them understand how talent acquisition, workforce development, employee relations, everything down the line affects what they do. They may not think that what they do in payroll affects all those pieces, but it really does. So the more I can turn them from a specialist into a generalist, the better they actually are at a specialist. So my goal in the end is to turn that specialist into a generalist.
I love that, man. That to me resonates a lot, as obviously I dealt with a lot of corporate stuff, and we don't understand the cost of turnover. We don't understand the cost of hiring. We don't understand, as managers, right? We're running around thinking about our bottom line, but we're not seeing how we're bleeding out money all the time because we're not taking care of our people properly. So that's awesome. That's exciting that you're doing that. Awesome, man. Linda, what's your questions for him?
Okay, so the next question I have is, what kind of client are you the wrong company or individuals to work with? And what qualities would be present in the ideal match of someone that you would enjoy working with?
Okay, so the qualities of the company that's not going to be as successful working with me is those where they are siloed into their own worlds and not necessarily trying to become the person who understands the realm of the enterprise. So, and sometimes that can be a small organization, because sometimes a small organization, the person has to wear many hats and they kind of figure out the little bit of things they need to do. They don't have time to focus on understanding the entire picture. That's probably the toughest one. Your mid-grade to larger organizations, though, are the ones that are the sweet spot for me. And the thing about them is they're the ones that I can teach them all how to become trusted advisors, because that's the thing that HR needs to become, is not just someone who's the principal or sets policy and understands the rules and regulations, mitigating risk. Everything about HR is typically about mitigating risk. It's really to be that trusted advisor. And the way I call it is I flip the equation. It says, so rather than you collecting the information and saying, here's what we can or can't do as an organization, a good HR trusted advisor actually collects the information, walks to a business person, understands what they're doing, and says, here are the things that are possible. Here are the things we can do. And you turn them into understanding that you're bringing information they may not understand. Anton, you said it a little earlier. It's one of those things where people just may not understand it. They may not know it. They don't know what they don't know. That's the role of the HR person, that trusted advisor, is to earn that trust by saying, I can help you understand how to drive business outcomes with human resources. And that's exactly, in the end, is everything HR has to do has to drive a business outcome one way or another. If we can't drive business outcome, then we shouldn't be doing it, whether it's operations, financial, any piece of the business, and that includes human resources.
Thank you for your time. We love always chatting with you, man. It's always a pleasure. What's the best way for people to reach you if they wanted to hire you as a consultant?
So they can go out to my website, Paul Carney Works, PaulCarneyWorks.com. That is where all of my information, you've got my phone number, my email, you can reach me through there. That is the best way to reach me. LinkedIn, I'm also on LinkedIn. Actually, all of the social media at Paul Carney Works. If you search for Paul Carney Works on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, although I still can't figure out the Instagram. I'm out there a little bit, but I'm still not actively out there. I gotta find ways to get better on Instagram, but I'm on all the social medias with that Paul Carney Works.
All right, that's all we got for you, man. I appreciate the time.